Today we'll be looking at an action, mystery, romance, and supernatural anime called W's, or Wheeze, or is it Wiz? Let's go with Wiz. It's a direct sequel to the 2017 anime Handshakers. 10 years after the events of the prequel Handshakers, our protagonist Araki Yukiya, who goes by the pseudonym of Wiz as a growing DJ, has a strange encounter with a person who tells him that Yukiya still appears to be following his father's instructions of not shaking hands with anyone, and then goes away. Later, Yukiya meets up with his totally not in love with him childhood friend Haruka, who tells him that he should make a promotional video to boost the views of his internet videos, to which Yukiya has an idea as he goes to a crowded place and shakes Haruka's hand, and they're both transported to a different realm entirely. During the transportation, Haruka has some visions, which she shrugs off, and they both start the performance. The performance blows up on the internet, and many people notice it, calling Yukiya an irregular handshaker. Of course he's irregular. He's the protagonist after all. Two teams, in particular, come and attack him in the middle of the performance with some kind of weapons they call Nimrods. Haruka is confused as she doesn't know what is going on. She's asked if she's fighting in the handshaker world to get her wish granted. Yukiya tells Haruka to hold on, and in a very Prince Charming-esque manner, pulls out his Nimrod as he's prepared to fight. Yukiya and Haruka manage to escape from both the handshaker teams and come back to the outside world after creating a diversion. Yukiya asks Haruka if she remembers anything, to which she lies that she doesn't. The next day, Haruka and Yukiya visit the Kita Asaka Academy, where they're told that Dr. Koyori Akutagawa wants to see them by the acquaintance of Yukiya's father. When Yukiya and Haruka visit the room, it's empty. Yukiya opens a door that leads to an observation room where he, being a boy, is completely overwhelmed by Koyori's beauty and the vague visions he sees of her. After Haruka leaves the two alone thanks to some urgent business, and that's exactly the kind of thing that makes childhood friends always lose, Koyori is revealed to be a former handshaker who can't enter Ziggurat, the handshaker world, anymore. She tells Yukiya that he's a special case, and that she needs his help in finding her elder sister and her handshaker partner, who disappeared after getting their wishes granted by God. She also warns him about the dangers of having the ability to freely enter Ziggurat with anyone, and that knowledge being public news. Yukiya agrees, as he has fallen for Koyori as any other normal male would. Yukiya comes home after this, where his father demands an explanation of his actions. The focus then shifts to the handshakers that attacked Yukiya. The boys, namely Guy and Masataka, revealed to want Yukiya's powers to permanently live in Ziggurat, while the girls, Hana and Senri, just want to live a normal teenage life away from the handshaker stuff. Yukiya realizes the amount of danger he is in, so he deletes the video of him performing inside Ziggurat. However, the damage has already been done, as the video has already become viral. The next day, he asks Haruka to help him figure out how to delete the video. On the other hand, various previous handshakers are gathering, which includes Yukiya's parents. Yukiya's father, Rei, confronts Masaru, the guy who we saw in the first episode, and gets angry at him for guiding Yukiya towards the other handshakers. Koyori arrives as well, and apologizes to Rei herself for guiding Yukiya as well. It is then revealed that Yukiya was born in Ziggurat and is an adopted child, and his parents were told to keep him away from the fighting. Yeah, that turned out pretty well, didn't it? Meanwhile, the others mutually agree that Yukiya should keep fighting for the sake of all the previous handshakers, as well as to find out more about Ziggurat and to find the people Koyori has been looking for. In the end, Yukiya arrives at the meeting of the previous handshakers. The episode begins with Yukiya going to Ziggurat with Hayate, where both of them try to make small talk, yet are unable to do so, as they both are introverts who haven't touched grass in a long while. Later, Haruka invites Yukiya to a concert by a guy named DJ Nielsen, and is doing everything in her power to be as generic of a childhood friend as ever. Turns out, the day they have to go to the concert is the same day that Yukiya has to go out with Chizuru. Both Yukiya and Chizuru then start searching for Nagaoka in Ziggurat, while succeeding in making small talk this time. They mostly discuss Koyori and Tazuna. The two rival handshaker groups arrive, and the 4-on-2 battle begins. Chizuru can manifest her Nimrod thanks to Yukiya's protagonist powers, but they still lose, as Yukiya still hasn't unlocked enough hacks. At the end of the episode, we see Tazuna making a grand heroic entrance into the fight when all looked hopeless for our protagonists. Tazuna is one of the few handshakers who have met God. The episode begins with a bang as the returning hero, Tazuna, flexes his skills on the handshaker pairs by summoning his gear sword and throwing one of them down on the ground. This makes the pairs retreat and go back into hiding as they can't face the newly formed duo of Yukiya and the literal incarnation of plot armor that is Tazuna. Now our pair goes to Koyori's lab, where she once again mentions how she doesn't seem to be aging, on which Yukiya, like the white knight in love he is, gets angry with Tazuna for leaving her alone in such a situation. Tazuna doesn't seem to share Yukiya's point of view, and both of them end up in a minor argument, after which they decide to go and check Ziggurat together. The episode proceeds as we reimburse the motivations of the antagonist pairs, starting with the boys, and then a flashback for the girls. Hana was bullied in school, and Senri protected her, which then developed into romantic feelings from both ends later on. Both of them then attack Yukiya and Haruka in Ziggurat, and we briefly see the childhood of both our protagonists as Yukiya shields Haruka from danger. The episode ends with Senri and Hana reaffirming their feelings for each other and charging up a big finisher after surpassing their limits. Yukiya manages to defend against Senri and Hana's big final attack, since he's virtually not supposed to die as the main character. This puts Senri and Hana out of the Handshakers game. Then, the scene cuts to the bar where Senri and Hana confess that they were misguided by the composer. They didn't know they could just lose and become a normal couple, but they are still happy as fighting together made their bond and love for each other even stronger. Then we move on to the boys, as Senri and Hana show Yukiya and Masaru where to locate Guy and Masataka. They find them and engage in a battle in Ziggurat. The scene then cuts to the two of them as little boys in a forest. Both of them are like stars. That's the one common thing between the two opposites, as Guy is energetic and full of life, while Masataka is monotone and boring. Both of them are revealed to have known about handshakers for years, and they've known about them thanks to Nagaoka and Makihara. This could almost make up for a semi-decent story if these two weren't awful. The episode ends with a standoff between both parties. Just like the previous episode, our main character is collecting wins like someone collects Pokemon. The standoff from the previous episode ends with a one-shot against Guy and Masataka from our protagonist with his partner of the week. The losers are recruited to the team of our protagonists. The episode then focuses on Tazuna and Yukiya and develops an amicable relationship between the two as they share their interests and love for technology. Koyori and Tazuna also share some cute moments as they mess up at karaoke together. Later on, Haruka admits that she has been lying about not remembering anything from Ziggurat for years. Truly the biggest plot twist. The main highlight of the episode, though, is that Yukiya comes up front with his feelings in front of his parents. Instead of just avoiding the issue altogether, he tells them that he feels guilty for having these powers and being so special, that he's sought after, and the fact that he's afraid of dying, or worse. Losing someone precious just because he randomly possessed a weird power like being an irregular handshaker who could partner up with anyone and even summon their Nimrods when they can't do that on their own. Makes you actually feel for the guy a bit instead of just mocking him for being a cookie-cutter, dense and introverted protagonist who clearly doesn't look towards his childhood friend. The episode begins with Haruka having a conscience crisis for not telling Yukiya about being able to remember the events of Ziggurat and lying to him about it. Then Koyori comes up and decides to cheer her up, as she cannot see her torturing herself mentally over this. She tells her that she might be a potential partner for Yukiya, so she should buckle up and put all of this behind her, so that Yukiya can have an easier time battling other handshakers. Koyori also tells her about her own experiences with Tazuna, and that they both had to figure out stuff too in their time. Tazuna briefs everyone that the composer is none other than the mysterious guy who shows up for 3 seconds in every episode, and his name is Midori Okiyuke. He also reveals that DJ Nielsen is a handshaker as well, and has hacked the system to stay one for years. The episode also features Yukiya finally debuting as a DJ, and since he's been helping them all out, everyone shows up. The performance is pretty much anticlimactic, but it serves its purpose. To prove that Haruka does more than cry, she is confronted by her band members, who ask her about Yukiya's love for discs and if she knew about it. Haruka is reluctant to say anything, and Yukiya overhears it and feels like it's a betrayal to him. The villain finally appears for more than 3 seconds. Midori goes on a monologue that the environment is running out of resources, that everyone should be concerned about that, and that they need Yukiya's power to solve this worldwide issue. He explains that when the Handshakers enter Ziggurat, they create a copy of themselves and everything in their vicinity. So since Yukiya can take in and out stuff from the Ziggurat, he can be Midori's pawn and help him save the environment. Since Midori's intentions don't seem to be all that clear, Tazuna and Yukiya refuse his offer and come back. So Midori then kidnaps Haruka, who already has a rift developing with Yukiya over the stuff he overheard. Midori tells Haruka she can protect Yukiya too, and that she can manifest her Nimrod and become the partner that Yukiya always needed by his side. She goes along with the scheme and goes to Okiyuke Academy. Since Yukiya doesn't want that, he starts freaking out over it, but he has no time, since DJ Nielsen has finally decided to be a bit relevant and is looking for Yukiya because of some kind of deal that he and Tazuna made. And thus, the episode ends with DJ Nielsen coming to Reiji's house to look for Yukiya. The episode begins with Nielsen reaching Reiji's house and telling Reiji that it was a really bad idea to let Yukiya become a full-fledged handshaker. So it's revealed that it was Nielsen himself who brought Yukiya out of Ziggurat, which means he was the one who told him to keep Yukiya away from the battle. Reiji isn't bothered that much by Nielsen and shrugs him off to go find his adoptive son in his desperate search for the damsel in distress, Haruka. The father and son have some small dialogues along the way until they finally reach Seba, who is guarding Haruka. They all engage in a fight, and Reiji brings out his signature chains to fend off the threat. Then, Haruka gets her own Nimrod this time, an electric guitar-esque axe. She then attacks Yukiya, but the conflict is resolved pretty early as both of them talk about their feelings and confess their love for each other. In the meantime, Seba is defeated, and when all was looking like roses and daisies, Nielsen shows up again to end this episode on a cliffhanger as well. DJ Nielsen and Tamari arrive to fight the two lovebirds and Reiji. They also bring with them Tazuna and Koyori, who are just there so that they could defeat and take Yukiya's power to protect him from all the stuff that's been going on with him. While Nielsen just wants to fight because he wants to test the power of our protagonist. The fight doesn't go that long, and it's resolved pretty early since DJ claims that he has seen enough and that Yukiya passes his so-called test. I mean, it's the 11th episode. If he ain't gonna pass now, then might as well just give up. The crew is then reunited with Nagaoka and Mayumi, whose whereabouts Nielsen has always known. They've been staying in Ziggurat since they can't seem to find the cure for Nagaoka's mysterious illness, and modern science still can't help them either. And clearly, keeping all of this secret made it much better for everyone since it gave them all something to do. That is, searching for these two idiots. That's not all though. Nagaoka and Mayumi are the real parents of Yukiya, and that also explains why he felt a mysterious attraction to Koyori. This episode once again reminds us that there is still the main villain out there. We get a flashback of Midori. In the flashback, he and Seba fought alongside each other as partners to get a wish granted by God. However, to do so, Midori's body is mutilated by his father over and over again, and he has to replace his internal organs with gems from Ziggurat. Haruka and Yukiya confront the guy, and he tells them that all the stuff he said earlier was a lie, and that he only cares about his ideals and them alone. He also tells us about how he will completely exploit Ziggurat for anything it's worth. Even side characters have had better motivations and goals. The rest of the episode is mostly fighting as the lovebirds engage Seba and Midori and are pretty much overpowered against them. Both of the protagonists lose, and the rest of the gang is there to back them up. The fight continues in Midori and Seba's favor as they still overpower the two lovebirds. Then, the episode goes on with the grand plan of Yukiya and Haruka, which is to call both the handshaker pairs they defeated earlier. With their help and some more protagonist power, Yukiya manages to tough it all out, and both Midori and Seba retreat. The three main pairs, that is, Koyori and Tazuna, Nagaoka and Mayumi, and Yukiya and Haruka, come forward and decide that if they hold hands, they'd be able to summon God and grant whatever wish Yukiya has. And he and Haruka now also possess a similar level of power to the two handshaker pairs that had already met God back then. Thus, Yukiya wishes for all unneeded wishes to be undone, and that pretty much fixes everything. Midori cannot exploit the ziggurat anymore with the gems. Koyori starts aging again, and everyone else just goes back to the way they were, including Haruka and Yukiya, who live happily ever after, just DJing together, since that's probably the one thing Haruka might actually be semi-decent at. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to Anime Recap for more stories. And don't forget to check me out on Instagram, instagram.com/JakeJohnstonVA.